Message Report. I'm your host, John Kelly. I'm joined today by Corina Saebels from Kelowna, British Columbia. In July 31st, 2003, Corina Saebels and her friend went stargazing and experienced something that they describe as terrifying, which became the basis for 3 documentaries, including one on the Discovery Channel, as well as hundreds of interviews on radio shows. The website for her book, The Collectors, is thecollectorsonline.com. Corina Saebels' experiences began around the time she was 5 years old, as it did with her own children. And her experiences, her encounters with extraterrestrials has been going on apparently for generations within her family. There are many eyewitness reports that corroborate her testimony, along with photos of burn marks, lesions, and cuts, and records of hospital stays connected with what happened to her during those times with the ETs. For the audience members who've heard of the movies or series on television, Communion, Fire in the Sky, Intruders, and Taken, these stories will give you some idea of what Corina Saebels has been through with her family. Corina, it's wonderful to speak with you and to make a connection with you as someone who's become very prominent as a person connected with UFOs and ETs in the Vancouver and British Columbia region. I'm very proud to have a chance to speak with you today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Corina, can you tell in an outline for today some of the background to your contacts and the outcomes of those contacts for you and your family? What characterizes the incidents of ET contact for you?
Well, for myself and my children, it first began between the age of 4 and 5. I was born in Belgium, in Brussels, and when I was 2 weeks old, my parents moved to Quebec here in Canada. So there was a lot of moves, a lot of traveling, but it didn't matter where we went. They always seemed to find us. So I don't know if is it implants in people? I don't know how they do it, but it doesn't matter where you move to. They will find you. Usually it goes from generation to generation. I believe that my mother was definitely involved, but she died at a very young age under mysterious circumstances, which in my own mind, I have a feeling had to do with the ETs having interaction with her. Now it looks like one of my grandsons is also being affected, and he's going to be 5 in June. So that's what it's been like, our whole lives. Usually when you're in your teenage years, the experiences happen more often. I remember about every 3 or 6 months, waking up with different things going on. I remember one morning when I was 15 waking up and having severe pain in the belly button area. And when I looked down, there was actually still blood in my belly button. And I got up to go and remove it and clean it out, and found that I had like a needle mark inside the belly button area. So that was quite a few years ago. For the next 3 months, I felt as if I was pregnant. I had never had sexual intercourse. I had never had a pregnancy, but I felt pregnant. My breasts were sore. The periods weren't coming. Very nauseated, different things like that. And 3.5, 4 months later, I had a very strange nightmare. But I say nightmare, but it was very real. The smells in the room were very real. What I could see, what I could feel, I knew it wasn't a dream, and yet I preferred to think of it that it was just a nightmare. And when I woke up the next morning, my father was, beside himself. He said, "Where did you go? You were gone last night in the middle of the night." Things like that they couldn't find me, they couldn't see me. So there's too much proof over the last 50 years to tell me that it was just nightmares. And, this has been the same thing for my children as well.
So to clarify, your contacts with ETs are characterized by issues related to abduction and non-consensual medical experiments?
Yes.
Yeah.
They actually will come to women and implant them, with fetuses that are half human and half them. And 3-4 months later, we'll come back and actually take the fetuses out. And this is where I have found myself on a couple of different occasions, including my daughter, on a ship. It must have been a ship. It was a huge round room with subdued lighting, very weird smell in the air, cold. You're put on this cold slab table it looks like stainless steel, but it's weird because it had no legs. It just kind of floated in the air. And all around were hundreds of these, what looked like, for lack of a better word, aquariums with all these fetuses in them floating in this liquid. I will never forget that as long as I live.
Can you tell us, between the time that you're experiencing everyday life and the time you're in these environments with fetuses, is there some mechanism by which these abductions are taking place? Is this what is the scenario whereby you are being abducted? Can you sort of describe some of the steps that involve between the time you're having everyday life and the time that you're in one of these other environments?
Well, I mean, it's like you're going to work, you go to your job during the day, you come home, you end up going to bed, and, there's different things that can happen. Sometimes I get a feeling I've just closed my eyes, so I'm not asleep, I'm still awake, I'm thinking about the day and tomorrow, and the next thing I knew, I feel this huge wave of electricity go through my body, and it comes, down from my toes up to my head. And it's literally a feeling of electricity. And it's like, whoo, whoo. Like I can't explain it other than that. And all I can think of, I just have time to say to myself, oh no, not again. And that's it. I'm out. The next morning I'll wake up. I remember, quote unquote, another nightmare. And then, I'm supposed to get up, like I've got pain, between my legs, and, I have a burn mark on my neck, and I'm supposed to go to work and, interact with people and pretend that everything is okay and that life is normal, but I'm sorry, it's not. Your life is just not the same anymore. You don't look at life the same way. You don't look at people the same way. Sometimes I look at people and I think, oh my God, we're all asleep. Like, we have to wake up to what's really going on, to the reality of things as they are. Because if we don't wake up and we don't start being more aware of the truth, I think it's going to be I think the right word in English is our detriment.
So this isn't unlike someone who's a survivor of domestic abuse having to live in society without making waves related to what's happening to them in their home life, even though, as you said, it's physically destructive. That you suffered these different physical injuries as part of your experiences. Yes,
that's right. I mean, I've said this before, and I hate putting it this way, but really, this is what it feels like. Every time they come, it's like you have your spirit, your mind, and your body raped over and over again, but there's no one that you can go to, because who's going to listen to you? Who's going to believe you? And they don't understand it. Even if they wanted to help you, how are they going to help you? Most counselors, most doctors, are going to see this as probably some mental disorder or something like that. And even if they wanted to help you, where would they even begin?
Well, in seeking treatment for some of the injuries, the physical injuries that you suffered, what have your encounters with the medical community been like? Have they offered alternative explanations for your burns, for example, or other markings?
No, most of them never have an answer for us to tell us what they think is going on. I remember one specific time, my son was around 9 years old. This was back near Vancouver. And he woke up one morning, well, I woke up to him just with this blood-curdling scream. And I went running into his room, and the next thing I know, he's got this hole in his back, literally almost the size of a dime. And I could see right through, like inside of his body. But there wasn't an ounce of blood on the sheets, not an ounce of blood on his body. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, the scariest thing I've ever seen. It was horrific for me as a mother to watch my child like that. And I remember grabbing a blanket and just, going to trying to go to this walk-in clinic. It wasn't open, so then I had to wait till the doctor's office was open because it was very early in the morning. Went to the doctor, and I couldn't believe this. At first, he looked at me as if maybe, I was an abusive mother or something. I'd hurt my child. You could see all these different emotions going, his facial expressions going on with him, wondering what this could mean. The next thing was he was asking me this question: "Oh, did your son fall out of his bed and fall on a toy or something?" I said, "No, absolutely not." I said, he first of all, he sleeps on his stomach. He doesn't sleep on his back. So if he would have fallen, I would think, it would have been the front area of his body. And then he just kind of said, well, eventually his answer was, "I'm not sure what this is, but I would make a very good guess that this is probably, get this, chicken pox."
Really?
And my son and I just looked at each other. Even a 9-year-old, he's just like, "What?"
Oh.
So that was one of the experiences we've had. Another time, both my daughter, who was 6, and my son was about 9, same area, same house. We all woke up one morning with blood in our urine, all 3 of us. Plus, we had this very, really strong smelling kind of sulfur-like type scent on our hands that we just couldn't get rid of it. We tried lemon juice, we tried tomato juice, we tried baking soda. Nothing would take the smell off our hands. So I went to our doctor, and I said, all 3 of us woke up with blood in our urine this morning and this weird smell on our hands. Can you tell me what kind of medical thing would give you these kinds of symptoms? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, I don't know any medical thing that would give you that kind of symptom. The blood in the urine, well, we could check your kidneys, we could check your bladders. So we had some tests done. They could find absolutely nothing wrong with any of us. No kidney problems, no bladder problems, nothing like that.
Now, in terms of these external visible wounds that you're describing, did they eventually heal, and did they heal in unusual ways?
No, they didn't. I believe my son's hole in his back took about 3 months to heal. I had to give him antibiotic ointment 3 times a day on his back, and then he had to take antibiotics as well. Some of the burn marks I've had, they go away within about a week, a few days to a week, but his took about 3 months, and he still has quite a scar on his back. Mm-hmm.
And your conclusions related to these injuries, are these injuries due to experiments that are being conducted on you, or are they due to transport between spaceships and your home, or what's causing the injuries?
No, the injuries are definitely by the things that they are doing. One of them that really frightened me and was really something for me was the 2003 experience, because until then I had never had what they call a small petite mal seizure, ever. I never had a seizure in my life. And that night began when when we started going home and all that, my girlfriend and I were talking about things. I already had a severe headache, like pressure in my head, and it never went away. From that time on, it just went on and on and on. So finally, I was put in the hospital for a week. I didn't tell them what happened, of course. I mean, I didn't want them taking me away in the white jackets, but I just told them that I had suddenly had these very bad headaches and stuff. So they did some tests, and then they told me that I was having small seizures. And I said, well, that's impossible. I've never had seizures in my life. And they said, well, you are now. They're called petite malls. They're not grand malls. But you do have seizure activity. And we have found some brain injury in the mid-central brain and other areas of your brain. So I have no idea what they did in my head or what happened, but I can tell you since that night, it's never been the same again. And not long ago was also diagnosed with benign meningioma in the mid-central brain area.
So do you feel that these brain injuries then are the consequences of your encounters and abductions?
100%, because I didn't have any issues before that night.
I'm not a medical doctor, but are these typically inherited conditions, or how do those conditions that you're describing typically come about? Is it because someone's genetically predisposed, or?
No, there's several different things that can bring on small seizures, of course. I mean, you can have a blow to the head, as you hear, a lot of hockey players sometimes end up with seizures and things like that. You can have a fall. It can be all kinds of things. So it's not one specific thing that will bring that on, but there's nothing in our family. No one in the family has an issue or has a history with anything like seizures and things like that.
I understand. So in general, what I'm gathering from your story of these contacts and abductions is that most of this takes place at night, during the time when you're preparing to go to sleep or when you are asleep. That's the time when most of this contact takes place, and the evidence for the contact consists of what quote unquote nightmares that you wake up remembering, but also that the body is scarred and marked in different ways that there was none of those marks when you went to bed.
Yes, actually, a lot of our things have also happened during the daytime when there were a lot of people around or when we were on our own. So it's not just at nighttime when we're asleep or just going to sleep. Mm-hmm. Some abductees will tell you the same thing. If you have any pets, especially cats or dogs, I remember, my cat just sound asleep purring beside me. I was still kind of dozing off. I wasn't quite fully asleep. And all of a sudden got up, the whole back was arched and it was hissing and looking straight at my bedroom door, going down the hallway to the kids' bedrooms. And I tell you, every single hair on my body was standing up. I knew something was there, and the cat was just furious. It was trying to protect me. And I got up, opened my door fully, and as I'm going down the hallway to my daughter's bedroom, I see one of the gray beings going into her bedroom. And I could not believe it. I thought, okay, I'm having a hallucination. I'm having a nightmare. I was trying to explain this all within a few seconds in my mind. And went into a bedroom, followed it into her bedroom, and it wasn't there. So I thought, okay, I'm losing my mind. I've got some mental disturbance going on, or it's a nightmare, and kind of tried to push it out of my mind. Now, the next morning I wake up, kids get up, we're at the breakfast table, and, you realize she's about 6 or 7 at the time. And she said to me, Mommy, the little white ghosts came to see me last night. And I said, the little white ghosts? I said, what do you mean? And she says, they scare me, but it's okay. They just look weird. They have big heads and big black eyes. And I just froze. Then my son pipes up and said, Mom, I didn't want to say anything, but I saw something really strange go into Nikki's room last night, and I was terrified, and so put the blankets over my head and couldn't come and tell you. I'm so sorry. And so I had to, right away say, look, you have nothing to be sorry about. I tried to calm him down. And then all of a sudden, as we're talking, my daughter pipes up and said, those are okay, don't worry. But she said, I'm really scared of the pumpkin head man. And I said, what do you mean, pumpkin head man? What's that? Who is that? And she said, well, he tells me he's the doctor and he hurts me. I don't like the things he does to me. So, wow, that just like, whew, I didn't know what to do with that information. All it did was take me back when I was a child, around her age, same age, and being in this place. And very strange. I know it was a ship now. At the time when I was a child, I didn't understand. I thought it was a hospital of some kind. And I remember screaming for my mother, Mommy, where are you? And of course, there was no response. And then this tall gray being with a bony structure walked into this room. And he didn't talk with his with his mouth. It was telepathic. In my mind, I heard, I am the doctor. And so it brought me right back to when I was a child, and I just couldn't believe that this was happening to my kids and that there was nothing I could do about it. And I feel very helpless. And it got to a point, you can understand, I more than anything, my kids are my life, so I was trying to protect them. I was trying to stop this from happening to them. But I was a single mom, first of all, so that I didn't have, a companion, a husband to say, oh, it's okay, or I'll stay up tonight, you get some sleep. It was just like, it was an ongoing thing. And it got so bad that I was sleeping with a baseball bat in my bed, just in case, as if that could do anything. I know, but I mean, that you do anything that you can to protect your children. And I remember one night actually taking a black felt pen and writing on my leg, I don't care what you do to me, but do not take my children again. Leave them alone.
Well, I think this is a very compelling part of your story, at least for me personally, is that in spite of the difficulty that you faced as a result of these encounters, you never lost sight of your sense of responsibility to protecting your own children.
Oh, that's just the way I am. My children are everything to me, so
maybe this is some of the redemption side of this, captivity tale, so to speak. In English literature, popular tales used to be written regarding people being held captive by Native Americans, or Europeans held captive by Barbary pirates, and certainly these things happened in the past. Today, our 21st century spin is related to extraterrestrials, and who's to say that, for hundreds or if thousands of years those relationships or these circumstances were continuing. I have to say, living in a home where there's very limited sense of security, in other words, where people are being taken against their will at night, or there's intruders in the home with no recourse to defense. In other words, there's nothing, you can't put a sign up front, no intruders. I mean, there's seemingly nothing that can be done to prevent any of those interactions. It's must have been very disempowering, and continue to be so for you. Free will and autonomy, all the questions that this raises. It sounds like you've been challenged on those issues.
And definitely, and I mean, yes, in a lot of ways we've gone through a lot and things like that, but I don't know, there's also a side of us that has grown from this, and we are determined that we will live through this. And yes, they've taken us many times, but we're still here. They didn't kill us, they didn't keep us there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
However, I do think about the babies, that were taken from me, and I think about having children out there, because I'm very nurturing, the idea of some of my children being out there and not being able to know where they are and if anyone's hurting them, or if I'm ever going to see them again, that's not a very good feeling. For me, that's really hard.
I think, and some of the story that you're telling in this light it says a lot about human nature and how we may, in our society, we may idealize technology. Advanced technologies are somehow going to change our ethics or decision making, but it turns out that our human nature, our strong sense of family and responsibility to children, these kinds of things, even in the face of an advanced civilization, those feelings don't change.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I mean, my personal feeling is that this is not going to stop anytime soon. I mean, they've proven that over and over again, that it's going to keep going on. So I will keep doing the only thing that I can to try and maybe help other families deal with this with their own children and themselves. And that's by, still doing lectures through Canada and the US or wherever else I may go. And, maybe have more documentaries done and who else, whatever else it takes to be able to help people, I will keep doing as long as I can. So
it's out of an interest in defending the public from these kinds of dangers that this is what inspired you, in spite of the culture of denial that we live in for anybody making claims related to ETs or UFOs. In spite of that, you found the courage to publish your story because of the sense of public interest and concern for the safety of others.
Well, I just think that it's with knowledge that we will get all the answers and that we will be able to help ourselves. I mean, none of us, not one person on this planet, I don't think, really knows 100% what some of these beings' intentions are. But then there's more than one being as well. Do you know what I mean? More than one kind. So I don't know what other people have experienced, but I know for us, it's usually been the grays. And a couple of times we have something that looked like a praying mantis. And believe it or not, those scared me more than the grays ever did. So, but I think some of them, they don't even have any emotions. They just come and do what they need to do, and they don't care how they make you feel and how this affects your life. They just come and do what they have to do, and then they leave, and then show up again, a few months or 3 years later. I think some of them definitely do not have emotions anymore, and they cannot reproduce themselves. So maybe the hybrid thing, with mixing half them and half us, has something to do with wanting to create a new race. Is it going to be to leave them here or take them somewhere else? I don't even know. I have no idea.
But it seems like from a political standpoint, this is an exploitation-based dynamic. This is not an empathic, cooperative relationship.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, they never ask you, is it okay? Would you like to be a part of this experiment? Would you help us? Is it okay if we do this? Of course not. No. And, they will come through the daytime and stuff, and we have proof of that as well. But most of the time it's at night. Well, why would they do that? So that no one else sees it, so that, they're hiding what they're doing, right? They're trying to hide what they're doing. Mm-hmm. But I think that more and more people are seeing ships. I mean, look at 1950. People say, well, why don't they show up over, the White House? Well, they did in 1952, I think it was. I mean, a whole pile of them showed up, and they were around the White House. They set out some jets to go in and intercept them, and they completely disappeared. And then the jets left, and 10 minutes later, they were back again. Well, if that isn't a sign, I don't know what is,
So there's several levels of complexity for you in conveying the story. One being that the general tone in our culture towards the phenomena of UFOs as to whether or not they even exist. Is it Venus or swamp gas? Those are usually the two choices. And then beyond that, the idea that ET life is interacting with people, except that this ET life isn't some kind of nanobacteria living in a lake under the ice in Antarctica. But these are like fully developed civilizations with technology and so on. That's also another challenge for people. But out of all the people that you've shared your story with, contactees and experience are stepping forward, and you've been working with those people to help them learn and assimilate their own experiences?
Yes. Well, I think I can't say it enough. I wish people, because I mean, there's probably thousands of people out there which are experiencing things, but they're too afraid to come forward because of the ridicule and so on and so on. But what they don't understand is that if they do come forward, the more that the people come and explain what's happening to them, and because I mean, when you listen to different abductees speak, we will talk about, you know, burn marks on our bodies. We will talk about hybrid babies. We will talk about certain things which are common with most of us. Now, there's other different things that have occurred with me and my children, which I've never heard of or read about before. But I have come forward and I have talked about them, no matter how crazy they sound, because I want people out there to know that they are not going crazy and that this has happened to us. So if it's going on with you, just realize that, no, you're not going crazy. This is real. It's really happening, and that you're not the only one out there experiencing this.
Can you share some of these more unusual type of incidences and how they're different from the the garden variety abduction?
Sure. One particular time, and this was here in the Okanagan a few years back, and this was the second or third time I think that this has happened to me. Woke up in the morning and felt very strange, like nauseated, dehydrated, just felt really awful, and had very bad pain up my right nostril. And it was very deep inside. It felt like something was stuck in there. I can't explain it any better way than that. And so, blew my nose. But as I blew my nose, this neon blue string, for lack of a better word, came out of my nostril and was on the paper. And I thought, okay, that's really weird. But didn't right away think anything of it. Okay, I threw that one away. Blew my nose again. This happened again 2 or 3 times. And it was about 1 to 2 inches long, something like that. What I discovered, though, was that the last one I kept on the paper, and within a few seconds, it disintegrated. It's like it evaporated or something. So it wasn't there anymore. Now, I showed this to 2 people that were in the house when this happened. And they couldn't believe it either. Like, what the hell is that? What's going on? This came from my nose. Okay, I just blew my nose. This came from, watch this. And it would just disintegrate and evaporate right in front of our eyes. I have no idea what that was, where it was coming from. But I did end up going to see my doctor, and I asked him to check up my nose because it felt like there was still something there. It was quite painful. So they sent me, he looked at it and he said, well, I'm going to send you to a specialist for nose, ears, and throat. I said, okay. So went to see him. He froze my nose. He went up there with a light, so on and so on. And then came back and said, well, I need to know. He said, how many times have you had surgery before? And I said, in my nose? I said, never. I've never had surgery in my nose. He said, well, that's impossible, because it looks to me like you've had surgery done before. He said there is one area which is almost like scar tissue, and one area which looked like there was like an injury that was being done over and over again in the same area. So to this day, I have no idea what those blue things were. To this day, I have no idea why they thought I'd had surgery, which I have never had in my nose. I have no idea. So these are different things that sometimes maybe aren't, talked about.
But this is very interesting. There are signs of a medical intervention, because the likelihood of someone bumping into something and getting an injury like that inside their sinuses is limited. The doctor was able to determine that it was the source of those scars or other marks was from a surgical procedure. I think that is very interesting.
Yes, and it is quite deep. It's not like in, just as you enter the nose. It was quite way up there. So Yeah, he asked me at first, he said, did you happen to poke something in there? Did you fall? Anything? I said, no, nothing like that, not that I can remember. So I do remember, however, years ago when I was younger, laying on a table, and there was this kind of machinery above me, and then this thing came down. It looked like a poker, and I saw it. I watched it coming towards me, towards my eye and my nose, and I think I must have passed out or blanked it out because I don't remember what happened after that. So they could have possibly done things already back then.
You say your body may have been subject to all these different, to surgeries from an early age, but not consensual, like comparable to illegal medical experiments.
Well, all I know is that they've done several things, to my head, to my abdomen area, the female reproductive organs, things like that, and it wasn't for my better good, that's for sure. I mean, it gave me pain, it gave me problems. I felt pregnant, then I felt like I wasn't. We've had what looked like radiation burn marks on our bodies. My son with the hole in his spine, and then one time he was 20 years old. He came up from Vancouver to visit me, and he was here only one night. And he wakes up in the morning and he said, there's something on my back. Something doesn't feel right. And I looked at him, and he had this, 4x4x4 perfect triangular mark on his back. And it had 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 6 circular radiation burns inside this triangle. And to make the long story short, we ended up going outside later on the balcony. And the room where he had been sleeping in had this experience. Outside, they had planted all these new young green trees. And there was an orchard right beside that. And lo and behold, this tree right beside the bedroom area, all the leaves on the tree were burnt. They were just as if they'd been in a fire or something like that. I even have pictures of it. And there was also a burnt grass area, which was in the orchard beside the tree.
So these were like almost like landing signs of some piece of equipment had been nearby the house.
Yes, just like in 2003. I mean, UFO BC sent out 2 field investigators who looked at the grounds and the dirt and the plant life and said, the dirt was more than just dry from sunshine. Like, it was like burnt dirt, for lack of a better word. And, they could see where there were marks where the grass, or the tall grass, had been stepped on beside the fence, where I had told them that they were in the area they were, but no feet, no footprints going in, kind of thing. So they would have had to come from up in the air and then down.
These are like these landing traces, as they call it. So these field investigators can go back and sample the traces if they're still available. And as you said, in your case, there were traces. I think that is very interesting as corroborative evidence. What are your thoughts about? A lot of people have cell phones with built-in cameras. Have you had the opportunity, being a cell phone user, to get some photographs of any of these phenomena?
No, because, you have to understand, I was a single mom, and I've been on disability for many years, so there's not much money around. So to have like a film, machine, or to have one of these cell phones that had, especially one that has photo capability, I just have never had that.
It's not been within your
I now have a cell phone, but until all those years, no, I never had anything like that. But here's another thing. I mean, some of these eyewitness reports that saw what happened to us tried to take pictures, and their cameras don't work, or our car wouldn't start. So when they're in the vicinity, quite often these mechanical things or whatever will not work anyway.
All right, so there were electromagnetic anomalies that accompany the contacts.
Absolutely.
Would you be open to, if the opportunity arose, would you be open to trying to conduct some kind of a surveillance exercise with night vision type cameras to try to gain?
Absolutely, 100%. I would love to do that. Yes, if I had the financial means, this is one of the things I would do.
All right. So part of what I take from your story is that you weren't necessarily someone growing up who was particularly enamored with tales of UFO contact or life on other planets. This really wasn't something that was an intellectual pursuit or something you were reading a lot about. It's as a result of the difficulties that these contacts brought to you that you were sort of forced to take a closer look at these issues.
No, I had never read a book on these, never watched movies on these things. When I came in the know, when I woke up and realized what was going on, I was 33 or 34 years old. So it wasn't until my 30s that I realized, oh my God, this is what's happening to us. It hasn't been nightmares. This is real. Yeah, it was terrifying. And, I've had what they call a scoop mark on my leg since I was a small child. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what it was until, again, UFOBC sent out someone to speak with me and my children. And then they asked me, have you been marked? Been marked? What do you mean? Well, have you got any little marks on your legs or anywhere else on your body? And I said, well, that's strange you should say that. I do have a strange mark that kind of sinks in on my leg, on my calf. And I said, I don't know where it came from. I don't know what it is. So he said, well, can I see it? I said, sure. So he took a look at it and he said, well, this looks like a scoop mark. And I said, a scoop mark? And he said, yeah, a lot of abductees will have some kind of mark like this on their leg or their body somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
Yeah, as you say, you're able to show all this evidence, but your identity, so to speak, your sense of who you are in life isn't wrapped around this issue. It's just in the course of living, you made these discoveries, these circumstances surrounded you, and you've been doing your best to manage them, given these as facts. But again, you're not overly attached to all of this. If it was all taken away from you, or if it was all resolved overnight, you would go on with life. You don't need this issue.
Oh, sure, of course. No, I mean, I've always loved stargazing, ever since I can remember. But I mean, as far as seeing movies or reading books on it, no. Like I said, I never knew anything until I was in my mid-30s. And that's when all things kind of became, oh, wow, this is real. What do we do now? Who do I talk to?
Tell me more then about the members of the public who are approaching you, and how do you bring them up to speed with your information? What are some of the kind of basic understandings that you'll share with people who are starting to emerge as contactees and sharing their stories for the first time?
Well, the first thing that I try and tell them, please try to let go of the fear, because if you live in fear, you're going to be paralyzed and you stop living. You're just existing. So it's not something that you're going to think about every day. You need to kind of, in some weird fashion, incorporate it into your life. And just know, always remember, they do take you, but you always come back. You're not taken and killed. Most of us that I know of anyways are brought back, and we get to go on with our lives. Yes, it does change your life. Yes, sometimes it's not pleasant and it's terrifying, but something inside me, I've always been a survivor and an optimist. And, I just keep praying, like maybe someday I will have the opportunity to meet some ETs which are of a more benevolent fashion, that are going to come and say, we are from such and such a place or time, and, would you like to interact with us? Maybe there's things we can learn from each other or help each other in some way, something, It would be nice to know some of our brothers and sisters out there, because in my opinion, there's probably thousands, because look at our universe. It's so vast. How could we be the only living, thinking beings that are here? That's ridiculous.
So let's explore this. As someone who's had an opportunity to think about these questions, these visitors, for lack of better words, From your point of view, are they commuting from distant stars and planets on a regular basis to come here and do this work, or are they cohabiting with us here? And just like European colonists who live in North America, have they also established themselves here from a long time in the past? What is your perspective on these questions?
Well, I think I'll speak for myself. My personal opinion is probably that some may be from distant planets and have some form of either time travel, use wormholes, or whatever it is that they do. And then others may come from other dimensions. We don't know. None of us know where they are truly from. But we know that they do interact with us, and it's on the physical level.
In my understanding, at least from what was shown on the Discovery Channel, there seemed to be some sort of dimension-shifting incidents in your experience. The UFOs seem to appear and disappear, or the ETs that are in the house appear and disappear as if they were changing wavelengths on the fly.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's times that I have seen a craft and it's there, and then it takes off very, very fast, and you can see that. And then there's other times it's there, boom, it's not. So it's just in and out.
These anomalies, like breaks in the laws of physics or the law of gravity, other kinds of these, types of anomalies. You mentioned EMP, like the electronic equipment failing.
Yes.
Are there other types of anomalies in your experience that may be connected to the ET presence?
Oh, definitely. I mean, for example, if say you're out somewhere and you're stargazing and you're standing there and you hear, the night sounds and so on and so on, all of a sudden everything can go dead quiet. And then the next thing you know, the coyotes, it sounds like there's hundreds of them and they're all howling at the same time around you in the surrounding area. The air will go a musty smell, or colder or hotter, depending on what people have experienced. For me, it's been, it was July 31st, very hot summer. We had all the fires going on and everything. So the heat was intense that year, that month. And, the next thing we knew, it's like, well, what happened? It's like the air was dead and there was a funny smell in the air, like a musty smell. And, everything went dead quiet. And the next thing we knew, the coyotes were going crazy. So, crickets will be affected. Animals are definitely affected by their presence.
You mentioned that the cat in the house was responding to something that was not visible to your eyes. And other contactees will talk about this, that when you're out in the natural environment, the birds will sing in the middle of the night, or in your case, you're saying the coyotes will become active. They're responding to something. We may or may not be picking up on it, but the animals are like sort of the canary in the coal mine, so to speak.
Yes, exactly.
Very, very interesting. So again, you people are reaching out to you because they're hearing about your story. They're looking for solutions, or they want to start to take ownership for their part in these encounters. Are you finding that many of the people who approach you are dealing with intergenerational contacts? Is that becoming more evident to you?
It used to be more so years ago that I would have people contact me. Now it's actually quite rare because I've decided to pull back that way a little bit.
All right.
Like I no longer run support groups and so on. But I always make my website and my email address known to people so that if they need to, they can contact me.
All right, but in terms of the time when you did conduct these, you were able to survey the population in from your vantage point as someone who was public with this kind of information. Are you saying that many people came forward and said that they were having intergenerational contact at that time?
Oh, yes. I believe the last group that we had, there was about 12 of us, including myself. Some were Canadians. I mean, I'll give you an example. We had a couple that was coming all the way from Princeton. They were in their 80s, for goodness sakes. He was a rancher, she was a farmer her whole life, that kind of area. Mm-hmm. There was another one who was a counselor here in Kelowna at the time. counselor hypnotherapist. We had a nurse that came, and then we had some people that used to live in the U.S. They were born there, lived there, then moved to Canada. And I remember one couple in particular, they actually had quite a huge UFO sighting just up over Dilworth Mountain, and not long after that decided to move back to the U.S. And I'm still in touch with them now. I mean, they still see things, but I mean, like I said, there was 12 people, and they were from all walks of life.
And what specific was it about their testimonies that related to intergenerational contact?
Well, you know, some of them, I believe I understand what you're saying, is that does it go from generation to generation?
Yes, because that would be a mirror of your own testimony, that, as you said, that you, your children, and perhaps
Yes.
your predecessors have all had some kind of contact as well.
We can go back, excuse me, I believe it's 3 or 4 generations at least that we've been able to see that somebody in the family had contact. For some reason, it's more with the female than the male, but definitely there's also males that have experienced things, like my brother, for instance. But these people would talk of, you know, their mother or their grandmother saying certain things when they were little, when they were children, and telling them not to be afraid, and that, you know, they always bring them back. And at the time they wouldn't quite understand. But later on, you know, when they got older and more things began to happen, then they finally understood what this dead grandmother used to say or mean, you know.
Yeah. So these social pressures, even within families, I mean, talk about a family secret. I mean, how you know, how in a climate, let's say you go back a couple hundred years where religion may play a very strong role in dictating the philosophy that's supported in the household, where is there even room for people to start to begin to talk about what's happening to them, and that may be very difficult for them?
I'll tell you, some people come to me and they said, you know, in the past, oh, you just want 5 minutes of fame. You're just trying to get some attention. Oh, I got news for them. You know, if that's the way they want to find attention, good for them. But that's not the way that I would choose to do it. We've lost lots of friends through these experiences. I was actually engaged to somebody who broke off the engagement because of him witnessing a UFO above us, and one night when we were having tea out back, and then me disappearing for 5 minutes. He has no idea where the hell I was. He searched everywhere. I thought I was only out there for 3 minutes. He tells me I was gone for 45. So, you know, even in your own family, I mean, you know, I have, you know, one sibling who is so terrified of even the idea of talking about something like that. Nope, nothing ever happened. Nope, it doesn't exist. And, you know, it kind of dismisses it. And then there's another one, you know, who is more open, but never opened up till we're in our 30s or 40s.
So in part, your work and your legacy is about breaking down these barriers of isolation that are culturally and otherwise imposed on people, breaking ground in these new experiences. I take that you simply want people to have access to resources and information.
Yes, for sure. And, you know, unfortunately, a lot of the people that have been available in the past and that were really good to abductees with, you know, when it came to information and support groups, like, you know, there was John Mack and Bud Hopkins and several other people, and a lot of these people have now passed away. So, you know, it's not, there's not as many available people as there used to be. However, I believe that more individuals are coming forward that are younger and are interested in this area and, you know, want the same thing that I do. They want to help people in some way, shape, or form. Now, you know, if this affects the whole human being, spiritually, mentally, and physically. So we also need some, you know, either preachers or ministers or somebody that will come forward that can work with these people and can help them, you know, understand maybe what's going on or give them some form of support. There's lab technicians, doctors that I wish that would come forward and work with abductees and take this seriously, because we do have some serious medical things that happen with us sometimes. And, you know, we can't always go to them. Sometimes we try and heal these things ourselves at home because we're afraid to go there. scared that they're going to put us away in a mental institution.
Yeah, and I think that any decent medical practitioner would be concerned that the public wasn't seeking medical support because they were afraid of being, subject to all kinds of pressure as a result of, these anomalous injuries.
Well, that's what happened to us when it was going on. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've woken up with bruises or marks or different things where, I either didn't go and try to heal it myself, or I would go and I would blame it on something else and say, well, okay, I always have bad periods or whatever, whatever the case was. And then they would kind of follow that line, if you know what I mean.
Do you foresee a day when children in elementary schools will be receiving guidance and education on these issues to help them wrestle with the challenges that they face, just as there are school-oriented programs around strangers on school property and how to manage other life situations?
Oh, God, I hope so, because, I mean, it's with knowledge that we can be prepared and we can understand things and let go of the fear, right? I mean, we're always going to have a little bit of fear of things, of the unknown and things like that. But, I mean, little ones, they just can't. They have to have some help. They have to have some guidance from us. Mm-hmm. We're adults. We have to be there to help them.
What would your thoughts be about somebody writing a children's book that would fulfill a role in that area?
I think it would be great. I think it's needed because, people may not believe that now, but I personally believe that within the next 10 to 20 years, we'd better be more aware and we'd better have some answers. Because I think they're going to make themselves, well, they already are doing it. I mean, you just look at the lights over Phoenix, a few years back. You look at all the UFOs that showed up over New York City in the middle of the day and people taking pictures and videos. I mean, it's not like they're not right in our face anymore. They really are, more and more. Mm-hmm. So, more people are doing videos and taking pictures and so on and so on. So we really need to step up to the plate and start being serious about this and being adults about it and going, okay, let's step out of the fear a little bit and let's see what we can do. Let's see who we can help and what answers we can get.
All right, so these are challenging ideas. I mean, for people, and it would be difficult for someone living in our society now to not have had some exposure to ideas related to ET contact, UFOs, or abductions. But these are challenging ideas, and it takes courage to wrestle with them or to even engage with these topics. But I think that one of the things I'm taking from our conversation is that it's simply better to not live in ignorance. It's better to wrestle with the challenging ideas and what they may signify. It's better to wrestle with them than to just live in denial. Yes, exactly. Well, Corina, I really felt the authenticity of your remarks today in our conversation. I had seen the piece that was done on television with all the special effects, but absent all the special effects, your story still rings with authenticity, and I'm very impressed by the way you were able to relate these incidents in your life. I hope that I will be able to continue to learn about your contacts and some of the valuable lessons that you're able to share with other members of the community. We've been listening to the Secret Message Report. I'm your host, John Kelly. I've been with Corina Saebels, a resident of Kelowna, British Columbia, who has extensive personal and family history with contact with ETs and abduction, all kinds of challenges. But she's here with us, and she's still able to share with the public. I'm so grateful that you were able to come on the show. Her website, thecollectorsonline.com, and her book, The Collectors, is there as well. So I hope that you listening today will become curious and will want to read more from Corina. Thank you again, Corina. It's been wonderful to speak with you.
Thank you, John. My pleasure.